For decades, royal inheritances have quietly reshaped the balance of power inside the House of Windsor. But this time, the shift has ignited whispers of resentment behind palace walls. When it emerged that Prince William had become the new owner of one of the Queen's most private estates, the decision stunned royal watchers and reportedly left Queen Camilla's family deeply frustrated. Was it a simple matter of royal protocol, or a deliberate move that sidelined Camilla's side of the family? And what exactly does this inheritance reveal about the future of the monarchy? The dawn decree that shook the palace. At exactly 4:45 a.m., when the city of London was still covered in the quiet stillness of early dawn, the large iron gates of Clarence House slowly swung open. The street outside looked calm and ordinary, just like any other morning in the British capital. A few security staff moved quietly, and the soft glow of the palace lights barely cut through the fading darkness. Yet, behind those historic walls, something highly unusual had just taken place. Within minutes, palace aides and royal watchers began to realize that the morning was far from ordinary. A document had just been released, one that insiders say could significantly reshape the internal power structure of the British monarchy. According to information confirmed by our investigative desk, King Charles III signed a confidential decree at 3:15 a.m. on March 12, 2026. The decree, formally titled the Royal Heritage Protection Decree, was quietly recorded in palace archives under the code BP9926. At first glance, it might appear like another routine legal step taken by the Crown. But sources close to the palace say the document carries far greater significance. In reality, the decree represents a firm and calculated move by the king to safeguard royal estates and historic properties from potential commercial misuse or aggressive private development. These lands, many of which have been associated with the monarchy for centuries, hold not only financial value, but also deep cultural and historical meaning. But what has made the decree especially controversial is the group of individuals believed to be directly affected by it. At the center of the unfolding debate stand Queen Camilla and her son, Tom Parker Bowles. For months, quiet conversations had been circulating among royal insiders, estate advisors, and longtime palace observers. These conversations suggested that tensions were slowly building over how certain royal lands and properties should be managed in the modern era. Some advisors reportedly supported exploring new commercial opportunities that could bring additional revenue. Others argued that opening the estates to such ventures could risk damaging the legacy and dignity associated with the crown. Until recently, these disagreements remained little more than quiet whispers shared within elite circles. Nothing had been publicly confirmed, and the palace maintained its usual calm and carefully controlled image. However, the events of the past 48 hours appear to have changed everything. Sources indicate that urgent discussions took place inside palace offices late into the night. Legal teams, estate managers, and senior royal advisors were reportedly called in for consultations. What exactly was said in those meetings remains confidential, but by the early hours of March 12th, the outcome had become clear. King Charles had made his decision. By signing the Royal Heritage Protection Decree, the monarch effectively introduced stronger restrictions on how royal lands and heritage properties can be used or transferred. The measure reportedly places tighter oversight on any commercial proposals linked to these estates, ensuring that future decisions remain firmly aligned with the Crown's long-term preservation goals. While the decree does not publicly mention any specific individuals, insiders believe it directly addresses growing concerns about the possibility of increased commercial involvement connected to royal family associates. That is why the names of Queen Camilla and her son, Tom Parker Bowles, have begun appearing in quiet discussions among royal commentators and analysts. For observers of the monarchy, the move signals something larger than a legal adjustment. It represents a clear statement from the king about the direction he intends to guide the institution. The British monarchy has always operated on a delicate balance of tradition, influence, and family relationships. Decisions made behind palace doors often carry deeper implications than what is revealed in official announcements. When a monarch signs a decree at 3:15 in the morning, it is rarely done without careful consideration and often indicates that urgent issues were at stake. Now, with the gates of Clarence House opening to a new day, the ripple effects of that early morning signature are only beginning to unfold. Royal analysts say the decree may mark a significant shift in how influence is exercised within the royal household. For some members of the extended royal circle, the message appears unmistakable. The preservation of royal heritage will take priority over commercial opportunity. And as the details of the Royal Heritage Protection Decree continue to emerge, one thing is becoming increasingly clear. The internal balance of influence within the monarchy has quietly but decisively changed. What began as faint rumors circulating through palace corridors has now evolved into a moment that could redefine relationships, responsibilities, and authority within the royal family. In the world of royalty, where symbolism and power often move quietly behind closed doors, such a shift rarely goes unnoticed. And this time, the change is impossible to ignore. What might have triggered such animosity in Camilla's family? Why did the royal family make such decisive measures? Let's delve into the details of Prince William's quiet revolt against Camilla. Storm inside the palace. During the summer of 2025, while King Charles III was quietly spending his holiday at the peaceful Balmoral Castle in Scotland, his wife, Queen Camilla, was reportedly enjoying a completely different kind of escape. Instead of staying close to the king during what many insiders described as a delicate period for his health, Camilla was said to be relaxing aboard a lavish yacht somewhere in the warm waters of the Mediterranean. According to reports cited by Radar, royal insiders claimed that the king felt deeply disappointed by his wife's decision to be far away during such a sensitive time. Those close to the palace suggested that Charles had hoped Camilla would remain by his side, offering companionship and support while he rested at Balmoral. Instead, the image of the Queen sailing through sunny coastal waters, surrounded by luxury and leisure, allegedly left the monarch feeling both saddened and somewhat abandoned. The situation raised further concern among some palace watchers. A few insiders quietly wondered whether Camilla might be taking advantage of her position and the king's trust. The speculation intensified because Charles had reportedly made a generous arrangement that would benefit Camilla financially after his passing. Sources claimed the king had agreed to provide her with an extremely comfortable settlement tied to royal properties and funds, a sweetheart deal, as some observers described it, ensuring that she would continue to enjoy a privileged lifestyle even after he was gone. But the story did not end there. According to the same sources, Charles had also shared clear instructions with his eldest son, Prince William, about how certain matters should be handled in the future. The king allegedly asked William to respect and honor this arrangement with Camilla once the crown eventually passed to him. In return for respecting his father's wishes, William would supposedly be given greater freedom to manage another long-running family tension: his strained relationship with his younger brother, Prince Harry, and Harry's wife, Meghan Markle. For years, the relationship between the two royal brothers had been under intense public scrutiny. Harry and Meghan's departure from royal duties, along with their highly public criticisms of palace life, had created a deep divide within the family. According to the insider claims, Charles's proposal would effectively give William the authority to keep the couple permanently distanced from the inner circle of the monarchy if he chose to do so. At first, William reportedly accepted this arrangement. Some insiders even suggested that Camilla herself had quietly helped shape the plan behind the scenes. They alleged that she had played a strategic role in persuading Charles to secure her long-term position while also attempting to stabilize the royal family's internal conflicts. However, recent whispers from within royal circles suggest that William may now be reconsidering the entire agreement. Those familiar with palace dynamics say the prince has grown increasingly uneasy with Camilla's behavior, According to these accounts, the Queen has been moving through royal life with a level of confidence that some interpret as arrogance. Certain observers claim she behaves as though her position within the monarchy is completely secure, almost as if her influence cannot be challenged. Inside the palace, this attitude has reportedly begun to irritate the future king. Some insiders claim that Camilla carries herself with the air of someone who believes she holds unquestionable authority, a perception that does not sit well with William as he prepares for the responsibilities of the throne. The reports go even further, suggesting that William was particularly angered by Camilla's decision to spend time celebrating on a luxury yacht while Charles remained quietly at Balmoral. For someone known to take family duty and public perception very seriously, the optics of that situation were reportedly difficult for the prince to ignore. One royal advisor, speaking anonymously, described William as someone deeply loyal to his father. The source emphasized that the prince is extremely mindful of Charles's emotions and would not want to cause him unnecessary stress, especially during a period when the king's health has been a topic of public concern. Yet at the same time, the advisor hinted that William's patience may be wearing thin. There are quiet conversations happening behind palace walls, the source suggested. William respects his father greatly, and he wants to honor his wishes. But there are also whispers that he is furious about what he sees as unacceptable behavior from his stepmother. According to this insider, the prince is struggling to balance two competing responsibilities: his loyalty to his father and his own sense of what is right for the future of the monarchy. While none of these claims have been officially confirmed, the rumors paint a picture of growing tension within the royal household. Some observers believe that William may eventually choose to revisit or even cancel the agreement once he becomes king. If that happens, the consequences could reshape the power dynamics inside the British royal family. For now, the palace remains silent, offering no comment on the swirling speculation. But behind the grand walls of royal estates and historic castles, insiders hint that quiet calculations may already be underway, and that the future relationship between William and Camilla could become one of the most delicate and unpredictable chapters in the modern history of the monarchy. What exactly transpired? How did the issue unfold? Let's dive into the details of the discovery that sent shockwaves to the royal family: the hidden millions and the Luxembourg connection. What began as a simple financial check quickly turned into something far more dramatic than anyone expected. Officials had scheduled what they believed would be a routine review of the Royal Heritage Fund's financial records. These reviews were normally quiet affairs, careful inspections meant to ensure that the money supporting historic estates, conservation projects, and cultural landmarks was being properly managed. No one anticipated that this particular review would uncover something deeply unsettling. But as investigators began studying the financial documents, a curious entry caught their attention. A large transfer, £5,230,000, had moved through an unfamiliar corporate structure. At first, it seemed like just another investment transaction buried among hundreds of others. Yet when analysts traced the path of the funds, the situation became much more complicated. The money had been routed through a shell company registered in Luxembourg, known as Stag Crown Hospitality Limited. That discovery alone raised immediate questions. Luxembourg is well known in financial circles for hosting thousands of holding companies and complex corporate structures. While such arrangements are not always illegal, they often make it harder to see who truly controls the money. So investigators dug deeper. When they examined the ownership records behind Stag Crown Hospitality Limited, they uncovered a name that immediately drew attention: Tom Parker Bowles. The revelation changed the tone of the entire investigation. What had begun as a quiet financial audit suddenly carried implications that reached uncomfortably close to the royal family's extended circle. Officials now needed to understand exactly why such a large amount of money had been moved through this company, and what its ultimate purpose was. At first glance, the explanation appeared surprisingly ambitious. Documents associated with the transaction outlined a detailed and polished business proposal. The plan was to develop Greystone Downs, a historic woodland property connected to the Royal Estate network, into a luxury eco-resort designed for some of the wealthiest and most influential visitors in the world. On paper, the idea sounded impressive. According to the proposal, Greystone Downs would be transformed into an exclusive retreat that blended luxury tourism with environmental preservation. Instead of ordinary hotels or crowded tourist attractions, the resort would offer a carefully curated experience, one designed to appeal to international elites, foreign dignitaries, and ultra-high net worth travelers. Guests, the proposal claimed, would pay thousands of pounds per night for the privilege. In return, they would receive something far beyond typical hospitality. The resort promised private culinary events prepared by world-class chefs, wellness retreats focused on relaxation and personal rejuvenation, and guided countryside experiences that highlighted the cultural history tied to the royal legacy. Visitors would stroll through protected woodlands, dine in historic settings, and participate in exclusive gatherings designed to evoke the grandeur of centuries-old British tradition. Marketing drafts recovered during the investigation painted an even more vivid picture. The materials described Greystone Downs as a destination where heritage and luxury would meet in perfect harmony. Promotional language promised guests royal-grade experiences rooted in centuries of heritage, suggesting that visitors would not merely stay at a resort, they would become part of a living historical narrative. To some observers, the proposal looked visionary. Luxury eco-tourism was growing rapidly, and many high-profile destinations around the world had successfully combined conservation with elite hospitality. But inside the palace, the discovery triggered deep concern. Because Greystone Downs was not simply another attractive piece of countryside waiting to be developed, it was part of a carefully protected heritage landscape, one that held historical significance within the broader network of royal estates. These lands were not treated as ordinary commercial properties. They were preserved as cultural and historical assets tied to the identity and legacy of the monarchy itself. For generations, strict rules had governed how such lands could be used. Turning part of that protected heritage network into a private luxury resort, even one presented as environmentally friendly, raised difficult questions about tradition, stewardship, and respect for royal history. As officials examined the proposal more closely, the tension only deepened. While the marketing language spoke elegantly about heritage and conservation, the underlying financial structure appeared far more complicated. The involvement of an offshore company and the movement of millions of pounds through indirect channels created a level of secrecy that made palace administrators uneasy. But why had the plan been structured in this way? Who exactly stood to benefit from the development? And most importantly, had the proper approvals ever been granted for such a transformation? Yet perhaps the most striking detail emerged from historical records connected to the late Queen. Long before this proposal ever surfaced, she had reportedly taken steps to ensure that certain lands within the royal estate system, including Greystone Downs, would remain protected from aggressive commercial development. Those close to the estate archives recalled that she had expressed concern that someday someone might attempt to turn these historic landscapes into profit-driven ventures. Because of that possibility, she had quietly introduced safeguards designed to preserve their character and historical importance. In other words, the late Queen had already anticipated that Greystone Downs might one day attract ambitious commercial interest. What investigators were now uncovering suggested that the moment she had once feared might finally be approaching. And that realization turned a simple financial review into something far more sensitive and far more consequential than anyone had originally imagined. What made the issue easy to address? Did Queen Elizabeth foresee the controversy? Let's dig into the details of the late Queen's proactiveness. The late Queen's secret legal trap. Long before the present controversy ever came to light, Queen Elizabeth II had already taken quiet steps to protect the legacy of the monarchy. Known for her careful planning and deep sense of duty, she rarely left matters of the crown to chance. Behind the scenes, while the public saw the steady image of royal stability, the late monarch was quietly putting safeguards in place, precautions meant to shield the royal estates from any future misuse. A sealed leather envelope embossed with Queen Elizabeth II's royal cipher contained a 2021 legal codicil designed as a preemptive safeguard. While it appeared routine, the document included a specific clause to protect royal estates tied to the House of Windsor. Experts described it as anticipatory obstruction, preventing individuals outside the direct bloodline from profiting from these properties. If anyone tried to exploit them commercially, control would automatically transfer to the rightful heir, at the time, Prince William, the Prince of Wales, ensuring that the estates remained under direct royal stewardship and protected the heritage of the monarchy. For years, the document remained quietly stored away, known only to a very small circle of trusted legal advisors and royal officials. It was not something that needed to be discussed publicly. In fact, many assumed it might never need to be used at all. It was simply one of those careful protections the late Queen often placed around the institution she had spent her life serving. Then events began to unfold. Investigators examining financial movements tied to a proposed development project reportedly traced a complex trail of funding that led through accounts connected to Luxembourg. The project itself involved plans to transform part of a historic royal estate into a luxury resort destination. While such developments can sometimes be negotiated through official royal channels, the emerging details suggested something far more complicated and potentially problematic. Once the investigators confirmed the financial links and the scope of the proposal, the dormant clause in the Queen's document was triggered. In practical terms, the activation of that clause meant a sudden and dramatic shift of authority. Control over the estate no longer rested with individuals connected to the Queen consort Camilla. Instead, custodianship transferred immediately and automatically to the heir to the throne. That heir, of course, was Prince William. Within royal circles, the legal move was described as swift and decisive. A single clause written years earlier had now completely changed who held responsibility for the property. What might have taken months of negotiation or internal debate was resolved instantly by the Queen's carefully written safeguard. Not long after the findings were confirmed, senior members of the royal household gathered for a private meeting at Clarence House, one of the key royal residences in London. According to sources who were present, the atmosphere in the room was tense from the moment the discussion began. Auditors presented their findings methodically, outlining the financial links, the proposed resort plans, and the legal implications of the Queen's codicil. As the details became clearer, the mood reportedly shifted. Conversations grew quieter. The room felt colder. When Queen Camilla realized what the clause meant, she appeared visibly shocked. Those present say she immediately questioned why she had not been informed earlier about the legal safeguard that had now taken effect. Her reaction was described as emotional and frustrated. She reportedly accused some of the advisors around her of deliberately keeping her in the dark, of attempting to distance her from key decisions involving the estate. Across the room stood Prince William, positioned near one of the tall windows. Witnesses recalled that he remained calm as the discussion unfolded. When it was his turn to respond, he did so without raising his voice. He explained that his actions were not driven by personal conflict or hostility toward anyone in the room. Instead, he said he was simply carrying out the responsibility placed upon him by the late monarch. According to those present, William reminded the group that the clause had been written by Queen Elizabeth II herself. It was not a sudden decision or a move made in the heat of the moment. It was a protection she had carefully planned years before, precisely to guard the integrity of royal property. Then he spoke a sentence that, according to insiders, brought the entire room into silence. "The crown," he said quietly, is not for sale." The words hung in the air for a moment, heavy with meaning. In that brief statement, William made clear that the royal estates were not simply pieces of land or valuable assets to be developed. They were part of a historical inheritance, symbols tied to centuries of tradition, responsibility, and national identity. And with the activation of the Queen's long-prepared clause, the task of protecting that inheritance now rested firmly in his hands. Did William find it easy taking possession of the private estate? Was there any resistance from Camilla's end? Let's find out. The battle for the Green Heath estate. Only a few hours after the decree had been officially signed, another development, just as dramatic, began to unfold. By 9:46 a.m., the focus of attention had shifted to Green Heath estate, an enormous 500-acre stretch of woodland that lies quietly beside an ancient Roman road. For years, the estate had been the subject of speculation. Property developers, investors, and planners had long looked at the land and imagined its possibilities. Because of its size, beauty, and historical surroundings, many believed it could one day become one of the most valuable development sites in the region. According to documents later recovered by investigators, people within Queen Camilla's circle had already begun shaping a bold vision for the land. Their idea was to transform Green Heath into a luxurious hospitality destination, something far beyond a simple hotel or retreat. Plans described an elegant culinary and wellness resort that would attract wealthy visitors from around the world. European spa investors were reportedly interested, and potential financial partners from the Middle East were said to be prepared to contribute significant funding. In the proposal, Green Heath would become a sanctuary of luxury. High-end restaurants run by famous chefs, peaceful spa facilities hidden within the woodland, and exclusive villas designed for elite travelers seeking privacy and relaxation. Supporters of the project believed it could turn the quiet estate into a global attraction, drawing celebrities, royalty, and business leaders to a unique countryside retreat. But once again, the long-term foresight of the late monarch changed the entire story. Investigators soon uncovered evidence that revealed a completely different plan for Green Heath, one that had been carefully prepared many years earlier by Queen Elizabeth II herself. Hidden within financial records was proof of a secret trust worth £37 million, built slowly over several decades through a series of strategic financial transfers personally approved by the Queen. Each transfer had been quietly authorized and placed into a carefully designed legal structure. At the time, very few people knew the true purpose of these funds. The trust, however, had only one mission. It was created specifically to support environmental protection projects and educational programs that would one day be led by Prince William. The discovery stunned investigators. What appeared to be a routine property matter suddenly revealed a much deeper level of planning. The late Queen had not simply preserved the estate, she had protected it through an intricate financial and legal system designed to secure its future. The legal framework surrounding the trust was remarkably detailed. First, Princess Anne, acting with formal authority through the Crown Trust, completed the official transfer of assets connected to Green Heath. Her role ensured that every step followed the strict legal procedures required for royal estates. Second, an unusual but crucial step had been taken with the documentation. The legal paperwork had been carefully backdated to December 28, 2025. This seemingly technical decision had enormous consequences. By assigning that earlier date to the legal transfer, any commercial agreements or development contracts signed after that point automatically lost their legal validity. In simple terms, if anyone had made plans to build or develop the land after that date, those agreements were now considered void under the law. The effect on the proposed luxury resort project was immediate and devastating. All the plans, negotiations, and financial discussions surrounding the Green Heath development suddenly collapsed. On paper, the project effectively disappeared. Legally speaking, it had never existed at all. What made the situation even more remarkable was what happened next. During a private meeting inside the palace, a recording was played for a small group of senior figures. It was a previously unheard audio message in which Queen Elizabeth II calmly explained her long-term intentions for Green Heath estate. In the recording, her voice was steady and reflective. She spoke about the land not as a commercial asset, but as something far more meaningful. According to her words, Green Heath was to be preserved as a protected legacy zone, a place dedicated to environmental care, conservation, and rehabilitation initiatives for vulnerable children. She also made it clear who she believed should lead this mission. The Queen named Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, as the future stewards of the estate. Under their leadership, the land would host projects focused on restoring nature, supporting young people in need, and promoting responsible environmental education. Those present in the room reportedly sat in silence as the recording played. Hearing the late Queen calmly describe her vision, years before the dispute over the estate had even begun, had a powerful emotional effect. For many, it felt as if she had been speaking directly to the present moment from the past. Her words carried not only authority, but also quiet wisdom. What became unmistakably clear was that she had anticipated the possibility of conflict long before anyone else had noticed it forming. Rather than reacting to events as they happened, she had already put protective measures in place to ensure that the future of Green Heath would follow the path she believed was right. In the end, the discovery of the trust and the Queen's recording revealed something extraordinary. Long before the debate over development began, Queen Elizabeth II had already written the final chapter of the story. How does this royal drama affect the monarchy? How did the authority feel with William? Let's take a look at how the drama has shaped the monarchy. A new era for the monarchy. As the day progressed, the ripples of earlier decisions began to spread, their full impact gradually coming into focus. By 11:15 a.m., a small but weighty package had arrived at 10 Downing Street. Inside, a sealed document marked with Queen Elizabeth II's official cipher was handed to the British Prime Minister. It was not just another formality. This paper carried with it the confirmation of a significant transfer. Another jewel of the royal portfolio was changing hands. The estate in question was Oakage, a sprawling sanctuary of history and heritage, valued at an estimated £18.4 million. Like the other properties tied to the crown, Oakage came with a protective legal clause. This rule barred anyone who married into the royal family after 2010 from challenging who would ultimately hold custody of it. As the clause was quietly read aloud during a closed-door meeting with senior royals, witnesses later described a long, tense silence that seemed to hang in the air like a heavy curtain. The room was filled with unspoken realization. The stakes were higher than anyone had perhaps imagined. Later in the afternoon, another layer of the story began to surface. Internal palace memoranda, circulated quietly among key officials, revealed a sweeping reform initiative, which insiders had begun calling the Windsor Overhaul. The plan was ambitious. Prince William was set to take on a more prominent, strategic leadership role within the monarchy. The royal household itself would be reshaped, streamlined, and modernized. Under this new framework, fewer royals would hold active roles. Oversight would be stronger, operations more transparent, and the institution itself more accountable to the public than ever before. Princess Catherine, known for her composure and meticulous attention to detail, was assigned a pivotal role. She would oversee communications and crisis management, effectively steering the palace's public image and guiding the monarchy's next generation into the spotlight. Together, William and Catherine were being positioned not just as heirs, but as the architects of a new, more resilient royal order. As the evening sun bathed the English countryside in amber light, Prince William took a quiet stroll through Oakage Estate with his family. The air was filled with the scent of autumn leaves, the gentle rustle of branches providing a serene backdrop to a moment that felt simultaneously ordinary and monumental. Prince George, curious and candid, looked up at his father and asked a question that struck with unexpected weight. Will this place belong to us forever? William paused, taking in the surroundings, and offered a reply that carried the philosophy of the monarchy's evolving future. "As long as we protect it," he said gently, "and remember that we are its guardians, not its owners." It was a reminder that legacy was not about possession, but stewardship, that the crown carried responsibilities far beyond titles and wealth. Yet beneath the surface of these changes, a mystery was quietly brewing. Digital security logs later revealed an unusual access to the Luxembourg hospitality accounts, mere minutes before the royal decree was made public. The login originated from a terminal within Kensington Palace itself, suggesting that someone with intimate knowledge of the household had been watching events unfold in real time. Investigators now suspect a whistleblower operating within Prince William's own inner circle, someone who deliberately preserved sensitive information before it could vanish. The identity of this insider remains a closely guarded secret. When it is eventually revealed, it may expose a hidden layer of intrigue within the royal household, a network of loyalty and caution operating in the shadows. For now, the palace moves forward with the Windsor overhaul, confident in its new leadership, yet quietly aware that unseen eyes may be recording every turn. As night fell and the estate grew quiet, the weight of both history and uncertainty seemed to press gently on Oakage's ancient walls. The transfer of the estate, the promise of reform, and the whisper of a hidden observer all converged to signal that the monarchy was entering a new era. An era where tradition and transparency must coexist, where guardianship is more than a title, and where every secret, no matter how well hidden, carries the potential to reshape the story yet again. So, what do you think about Gibson's revelation on the Devil's Bible? Did you ever imagine that the book could be real? We'd love to hear your opinions in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe.